Joining us now is Okpe with stories trending around the world. Hello, OG.
I love when you nod. You know that you've done the right thing.
You know,
done it right by me today.
I swear. Good morning.
How are you? Good morning.
Good morning, OG. How are
you
you today? I'm
Perfect.
good.
Good morning to you, viewers. We begin what's trending in Kano State, Nigeria, where reports suggesting that food items donated by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development to help cushion the effect of the coronavirus lockdown in the state have been left to rot. The food items, said to be worth millions of naira, were donated on May 17th and have since been left abandoned at the warehouse of the Kano Agricultural Supply Company without cover to prevent them from any presumed damage. Photos show that the items have been beaten by rain. The food items are expected to be distributed to the vulnerable and less privileged, whose sources of survival crumbled due to the lockdown directive in the state.
What kind of dropping of the ball is this? I mean, if really and truly that is the case, that these items were left out to just rot in the rain, then quite frankly, wow. What does anyone say? These are meant to be palliative measures for the people who don't have these items already, and they're just left outside to rot in the rain. But why am I not surprised?
Well, we're talking about 139 trucks of grains, rice, millet, sorghum, and maize that have been donated to the Kano State government by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. And the body called CASCO, the Kano State Agricultural Supply Company, took delivery of this consignment up to about 2 weeks ago. And I think it's most strange that the materials that are supposed to be distributed to 50,000 households in 44 local governments will be left out there to just waste away. And 3 rounds of rain, you know, already reportedly fell on this consignment. Now, the first rainfall, the second, the third, and now people are protesting. And the only explanation that we are aware of is the chairman of the fundraising committee in Kano State claiming that the problem they have is lack of logistics. Now, whatever that means, and this chairman of the fundraising committee is a professor, talking about lack of logistics.
I'm just shocked.
So
you said you were in shock.
I know, now I am. I'm like, you know when you don't expect to get any more surprise, you now hear lack of logistics.
So it is a lot of strange things coming from Kano. Yes. Yesterday, you had a story, about the Sani Abacha Isolation Center. And of course, the state government, the Commissioner of Information, said this was born out of mischief. He offered an explanation. I hope they are not going to turn around and begin to lie to us again.
There's no explanation. We've seen the photos. We've seen the photos. We've seen the food rot.
Further, when they talk about logistics, I hope this is not a question of Kano State trying to blackmail the federal government. Yeah. You will recall that the governor
That's the conversation on social media right now. Some money.
Some money to support the state. You know, earlier, the state had distributed some palliatives to, according to them, to about 40,000 households. The governor even personally donated coffins, you know, to take care of burials at the cemeteries. Now, if the state government had seen the need for palliatives, why would they receive, you know, thousands of metric tons of grains, and then they would just leave it out there to waste away?
Like, logistics is the easiest thing to get. I mean, it's the lamest excuse.
Why would it be left outside like that in the first place?
In Kano State, where there are so many people that
without any covering.
Without any covering.
Maybe they have even tried to put tarpaulin.
So, yes.
First of all, what that means for
of
health and safety and the high...
Yes.
You know, it's just so appalling. I think that's the only word I can even use at this point.
Irresponsible, our favorite word.
Irresponsible. You know?
Yeah.
Wants to be
All right.
Oh, my.
Well, still in Nigeria, the director of Muslim Rights Concern has demanded for the impeachment of governors who allowed congregational Eid prayers over the weekend. The director, Professor Ishaq Akintola, says the governors committed impeachable offenses by openly flouting guidelines issued by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, such as physical distancing and the compulsory use of face masks in public places. He added that the actions of the governors ran contrary to the directives by the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs. In Kano State, which currently has the second highest number of active COVID-19 cases and fatalities in the country, Eid prayers featured large gatherings of people flouting social distancing rule.
I don't think this is I don't think it's quite far off to call for their impeachments. But
I don't know how far he's going to get with
He's not going to get far. If we're being honest, he's not going to get anywhere. But quite frankly, the point stands. It's absolutely wrong. Look at the footage we're seeing on our screens right now.
This happened in Kano State. Look at this. This is
what about the health and safety of your people? That should be your top priority.
Yes, they were holding Eid prayers with people locked up at the behind the glass doors.
I think it is good to see the Muslim rights concern, Murik, and Dr. Ishaq Akintola, who is a spokesperson for it, speaking up against misconduct on the part of Muslim leaders and the Muslim community. Because hitherto, Murik had developed a reputation for only attacking the Christian community. But he made the point that, look, when you see the truth, you say it. And that, he will not say that because Muslims are involved, then Murik should not point out the error that had been committed. And he said, of course, that these governors, they defied the directives of the Sultan, of the Jamaatul Nasrul Islam, and also of the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs. But that's not the basis on which they can be impeached. So he recommends impeachment, and he referred to Article 14, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution, which says that the responsibility of government shall be the security and welfare of the people.
Thank you.
And in the reckoning of Murik, by allowing religious worship and large congregation, those governors breached that.
Yeah.
However, the responsibility for impeachment lies with the state houses of assembly. And the process is as spelled out in Section 188 of the 1999 Constitution, subsections 1 to 11 thereof. And the critical thing there is the process. And that the process involved is very stringent. In fact, it could take up to 4 months.
Yeah.
And it could be aborted midway if you don't get either 1/3 or 2/3 majority. And you know these governors, they will influence the House. They may not get
impeachment will not get anyone.
Majority.
Yes.
And then the subsection 11 that I refer to says a governor can only be impeached if he breaches the provisions of this Constitution or any conduct that is considered in the opinion of the House of Assembly to amount to gross misconduct. So you need to get a meeting of minds.
This is gross misconduct.
I think it's very gross.
Yes.
Very, very, very gross. But let me tell you why it's very gross. What did you say the primary responsibility of governments is? The security and welfare of your people. So if you cannot fulfill your primary duty, it is gross on every level. That is the grossest of grossest misconducts that we can be speaking about. So yes, I think it's in order.
Would members of the state houses of assembly in these states, would they interpret it?
That's why.
No, they won't, and that's the reality.
Dr. Akintola also says the federal government should speak up, and that the federal government should issue a statement condemning the conduct of the state.
They should do it.
Yeah, but I don't think that the federal government will go that far because, as I keep saying, the president of Nigeria is not a headmaster. So he's limited in that regard. Any action with regard to what Murik is recommending is only within the purview of the state houses of assembly. However, members of the state houses of assembly must have also been among the VIPs.
Of course.
And that's why nothing will happen now. That's exactly why nothing will happen.
Exactly.
That's exactly why it would not happen.
You just can't win. You cannot win.
Well, let's take another story in Nigeria. The governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, has cancelled the planned total lockdown of 2 local government areas in the state. The governor, in a broadcast on Tuesday, said the decision was reached by the State Security Council after a review of the COVID-19 situation in the state. Though no direct pronouncements were made about the reopening of businesses, the governor, in his address, directed that measures put in place against the COVID-19 in the state be exercised by the businesses that were barred from opening. The governor also attributed the decision to demolish 2 hotels in the state for violating the coronavirus lockdown to the State Security Council. And users on social media have reacted. Let's take some reactions real quick. One user wrote, "This is exactly how Nigerian politicians claim to be innocent after evidently stealing public funds. They know that no matter how obvious the lies is, people would believe." Another user, Chief, posted a photo of the governor at the alleged demolition site with the caption, "Supervisor." I guess we're going to have to come back to discuss this topic.
Well, we'll take a short break.
Yes.
When we return, we'll discuss it.
All right.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Okpe is still with us, looking into what's trending today. Over to you.
Yes, before we went on a break, we were discussing the governor of Rivers State and his claim that he was not part of the, he was not the only person who authorized the demolition of the two hotels that made waves on social media last week. And people are calling him out and saying that, you know, he should take responsibility for what he had done.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I think when people are given positions of responsibility, they should be able to accept responsibility. In Rivers State, at this moment, the best that we know is that the buck stops at the governor's table. And he is, in any case, the chairman of the Security Council in the state as the chief security officer of the state. And I'm even surprised that now he's trying to distance himself from what happened when there is video evidence to show that, in fact, he personally supervised the demolition of the hotels in two local governments, LMA local government and Obeakpo local government.
Yes.
And when he addressed the state on May 10, on the day when he first announced the easing of the lockdown in Port Harcourt and Obeakpo, he devoted a substantial part of his speech claiming responsibility for the demolition of those hotels. You can go and check his speech.
I remember that.
And he even said, look, he placed a bounty of 50,000 naira on the head of the manager of a Protest Hotel. Now, what has happened is that there's been an outrage by persons that, look, you can't just go and demolish somebody's property without following the due process of law. And he must have realized the implications of what he did. Now, only yesterday, Ogoni women, the mother of the manager of the Protest Hotel, mobilized Ogoni women who said that their son must be released. Yes. The state had said he was in quarantine and I had tested positive. The women said, look, he's not positive. Just return him to freedom because we don't want to lose another Ogoni son, right? And at the end of the day, the women threatened that if the governor did not do anything by today, the next time they will come out to protest against him, they will come out fully naked. So this
no, I think there was the one picture that I saw this lady.
No, they were half naked.
She was half, so this one will be
But the next protest, they say it will be an open, I don't know how that will be in terms of implications for public order. But, you know, now the governor is talking from another side of his mouth. You know, it's,
well, he may have a point.
There's
a bunch of people in his team. I bet he has a point with that.
But,
I mean,
you know,
it's not his sole decision.
No, he cannot on one hand take public responsibility and accuse hotel owners of not cooperating with the state government and sabotaging them.
He was beating his chest. He was beating his chest in happiness. Yes, now that he was the one who led this demolition. So now to try and distance, it's such common character in politics, but it's still amusing, you know.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Well, let's head over to Lebanon now, where an abused Nigerian domestic worker was prevented from boarding the flight that evacuated 50 trafficked girls from Lebanon to Nigeria on Sunday because her employer claimed he owned her. A post on Twitter by an account called This Is Lebanon, a coalition of former domestic workers in Lebanon, reported that they received a text message from the Nigerian worker, 31-year-old Ariwolo Olamide Temitope, that she was not allowed to enter the plane to Nigeria because her madam did not approve her to leave. In Lebanon, the kafala system grants employers a large say over the fate of domestic workers who have little or no rights. Anti-trafficking activists in Lebanon have also reported that 8 other women were prevented from boarding the flight, including the 31-year-old Temitope, whose bloodied image circulated on social media last month after an altercation with her same employer.
This is just so heartbreaking, and it's at that point where it's like, can something just be done? We have agencies that are supposed to be at the forefront of this fight, NAPTIP in particular. They need well, I don't know if they have already, they need to be able to address this because they need to bring her and other stranded survivors of human trafficking home. I mean, the amount of Nigerian women, in particular young women, that are trafficked to Lebanon is just becoming far too prevalent. I mean, it is one of the hotbeds, but it's becoming far too prevalent.
Especially this one lady back in April, I think that she had recorded herself, you know, after she had gotten into this altercation with her employer. And nothing happened after that. I don't understand why she's still stuck there.
I think the real problem here is what they have in Lebanon that is called the kafala system.
Yes.
The kafala system is a system whereby migrant domestic workers are tied to the apron strings of their employers in terms of their right to residency in Lebanon. In fact, it's so stringent that, you know, they cannot even be allowed to leave the country without the permission of their employers. And hence, this has encouraged over the years a lot of abuses. When wages are not paid, these girls, they're mostly women, are helpless. There are also cases of rape or sexual harassment. Yes. In the case of this Okpe, the husband of her madam, to use that phrase, last year even made advances, and she rejected the advances, and that was when she was brutalized by the husband of the madam. And, you know, you have a large population of people under this kafala system from Nepal, from Bangladesh, from Nigeria, and from other parts of Africa. And it's been condemned by progressive forces in Lebanon, by Amnesty International, by the Anti-Slavery International. And what even makes it worse is that there is racism involved. So you are not just dealing with modern slavery, you are also dealing with migration issues, you are also dealing with racism. But the confusing thing about it is why the Lebanese government has not addressed this major blot on its, on its image. But in this particular case, this lady who was not allowed to travel, to return to Nigeria, as one of the 50 women that were being repatriated, questions should be asked. Is it that her madam had seized her passport? Is it that Nigerian diplomatic officials were not at the airport to ensure the smooth passage and exit, you know, of these women who have been trafficked?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
the follow-up to it, of course, is, there is work cut out here for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Nigeria Diaspora Commission and the Nigerian Mission in Lebanon to make sure that they look into this matter.
The news is out there. They have to.
Yes, and the case of other Nigerian women that may be in this difficult circumstance. But finally, it's also a lesson to all women who want to go to Lebanon or Libya or anywhere in Europe as migrant domestic workers to realize that, you know, this kind of possible fate may await them too.
Very well said, Dr. Abati. Well, let's head over to Tanzania now, where the country's Interior Minister, George Simba Chiwere, announced on Sunday that traffic police officers with potbellies are to be redeployed because they embarrass the police service. In a statement, the minister said, in quote, "They are not popular. How can a police officer have a potbelly? Some of our police officers are using their uniforms to extort bribes from motorists." While on Twitter, human rights activists urged that the policy should not lead to discrimination. All right, well, thank you guys for making me laugh while I was reading my script. But I mean, come on.
That minister should also come to Nigeria to come and see real potbellies, you know, within the police. But of course, I think one concern here is about body shaming.
Yes, that's why.
And that's why the question about discrimination is raised.
Correct.
Is there a code of physical appearance that policemen in Zimbabwe must abide by? In Tanzania. Is there a regimen of training that is supposed to keep them fit?
Yes.
Because if all of that is not in place, half of the police force will develop potbellies.
But you know, it's the police force. It's different from traffic officials now. I mean, they're just
I guess the entire idea is you're meant to be fit enough to run and chase them. But discrimination is
part of the police. They are doing policing work to keep the traffic. So if they develop potbellies, you know, what do you do to assist them?
Yes.
Is there a program in place in Tanzania to advise them against obesity, which is not even in their own personal interest. But I like the comic part.
You gotta be able to chase a thief. You gotta be able to chase a thief.
But they have those motorbikes now. They can get on their motorbikes with them.
Oh my.
Yeah, but that issue of discrimination is the big deal. I mean, it has to be addressed
because it's
as well.
body shaming,
Yes, really. All right, well, now let's head over to the U.S., where users on social media have shared their tributes and outrage after a man in Minneapolis was killed by a police officer who allegedly said that the guy was resisting arrest. George Floyd died late on Monday when officers responded to a call from a grocery store that claimed Floyd used a forged check. Police said Floyd physically resisted officers while possibly under the influence of drugs and alcohol. With the hashtag Justice for Floyd, users on social media have called for an overhaul of the justice system in America. In a video footage that went viral, George was gasping for breath while a police officer had his knee on his neck until he passed out. Let's take a quick look.
I'm about to die, you see. Relax. Man, I can't breathe in my face. Just get up.
What do you want?
I can't breathe. Please, the knee in my neck. I can't breathe shit.
Bro, get up, get in the car, man.
I will.
Get up, get in the car.
I can't move.
I've been waiting the whole time, man. Just get up, get in the car.
Mama.
Get up and get in the car right.
I can't.
You gave y'all an opportunity to get in, bro. I told you, you can't win.
My knee.
You can't win, man.
I'm through.
I know you didn't never, you didn't listen.
Can you just,
Well,
like, I'm just...
This is terrible.
It just keeps, it's becoming too repetitive and too repetitive and too repetitive. Justice for Floyd, what is that? Come on.
The thing we can ask for is justice for George Floyd, whose life was snuffed out prematurely at the age of 46 due to police brutality, which has become a major problem in the United States, and even worse because of the underlying fact of racism that seems to fuel it. Now, there's been outrage across America, from Minneapolis to everywhere, with persons carrying placards and repeating the words of George Floyd as life was being snuffed out of him. 13 times he was saying, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." At some point in distress, he started calling on his mama.
Yes.
You could see the extent of the, the asphyxiation. And here were these policemen not caring at all. And the question many Americans are asking is the racist question. Would they have done this if it was Caucasian? But however, law enforcement agents are already investigating, from the local police to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And the policemen, 4 policemen involved have been suspended from work. But the American people will be watching, particularly the minority groups, to see whether there will be justice in this matter. Because this is one case of police brutality, of extrajudicial killing, too many.
Only last week also, I mean, it's just really calls for the amount of racism that goes on in the United States. I have another story that I was going to tell if we had one, if we had time. Okay, let's take that story and then we'll just round up with what's happening in the U.S. Well, still in the U.S., a white woman who called the police to report an African-American man threatening her life after he asked her to leash her dog in New York Central Park has been suspended from her investment firm job. In a video that went viral on social media, the woman, Amy Cooper, was walking her dog on Monday morning, while the African-American man, Christian Cooper, was birdwatching at a wooded area of Central Park. Their dispute began when her dog was not on a leash, and the African-American man asked her to put her dog on the leash. Let's take a quick look.
Would you please stop? Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
And
me.
I'm taking a picture and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, I'm in the Ramble, and there is a man, African-American, he has a bicycle helmet, He is recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African American man. I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. And I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the ramble. Please send the cops immediately. I'm in Central Park in the ramble. I don't know.
She got what she deserved, quite frankly, at the end of the day.
Yes.
Very good for her.
She lost her job.
Thank you very much, Oji.
Thanks, Oji.